and let us all do we can to build a better future.
This one, I first want to give a shout out to the Convo Couch that did a fantastic analysis yesterday and today in regards towards previous statements that was said by Representative or former Representative Tulsi Gabbard. To be very clear here, Hardlens Media in the past have done a lot of stories about Tulsi Gabbard, especially during the presidential election cycle of 2020. And we wouldn't be talking about Tulsi Gabbard were she not smeared by corporate media, how they called her a third-party asset, how they called her a Republican plant, how they called her a Russian asset, a Syrian asset, and all these other things, and how she was blocked from being on the debate stage, and so much more. But let's face it, Tulsi Gabbard, like everyone else, is human. And some of her Twitter takes have been, well, very hawkish and really questionable at this point in time. And I want to pull this tweet up from Jimmy Dore, who also retweeted Ron Placone. If we can, let's pull this up. Jimmy Dore, same, all heartbreakers for me. And if we scroll down, I want to read Ron Placone's tweet right there. I was wrong about Tulsi Gabbard. I was wrong about Bernie, the squad, AOC. I was wrong to think our electoral system could somehow be the solution. I know it will never be. Hashtag general strike. And before we start with the rest of the story, look, at this point in time, we need to talk about really building the true infrastructure for a general strike. Shout out to the Fred Hampton leftists that have been doing continuous videos and conferences and conversations about the needs and the necessity of doing a true general strike. I think this is our last best hope because relying on politicians, both elected and former, to be our heroes or people that we respect, again, is a fool's errand. So first, let's pull up this video from Tulsi Gabbard where she was on Tucker Carlson's show. I find it questionable, and again, shout out again to the Convo Couch, where they really call out Tulsi Gabbard for defending this drone strike, and really, it just seems different on how she's presenting her thoughts on regime change war. So let's go ahead and play this video in its entirety.
Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So you get to lie, I mean, this will not shock you because you've seen it so much, but you get to lie about the loss of human life, you get caught, and nothing happens to you? What kind of system is that?
I mean, this kind of accountability is critical. I want to point out first that anytime there are civilian casualties in war, it is tragic and terrible.
Yeah. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So you get to lie, I mean, this will not shock you because you've seen it so much, but you get to lie about the loss of human life, you get caught, and nothing happens to you? What kind of system is that?
I mean, this kind of accountability is critical. I want to point out first that anytime there are civilian casualties in war, it is tragic and terrible. Yeah. War is a terrible thing, and I think it's important for the American people to understand that Islamist jihadists are continuing to wage war against us. And the Islamist ideology, not the same as the religion of Islam, but this Islamist ideology, which is a political ideology that inspired the terrorist attacks on our country on 9/11, is the greatest threat that we're facing right now in this country and the world. It is the foundation of governance of so-called Islamic countries like Turkey and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And it's what's behind the discriminatory policies that they have in these countries against Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, and others. So as long as these Islamist jihadists are waging war against us, we have to work to defeat them militarily and ideologically. And militarily, we have two choices in how we do that. Number one, we can continue to invade and occupy and nation-building countries around the world, just as we did in Afghanistan, at great cost. Number two, we can take a targeted approach using airstrikes, using our special forces to go in and go after these terrorist cells. The reality is that the cost to the American people, the cost to our troops, the cost to civilians will be far less if we take this very targeted approach to go after these jihadist terrorist cells than if we continue making the very same mistakes that we saw in Afghanistan and other parts of the world of invasion, occupation, and nation building.
All right, so I think I'm going to quote Craig Jadula, also known as Pasta from Convo Couch.
Congressman, thanks so much.
Wait, can we pause that video? All right. So first, I want to just say this. it's the look of Tucker Carlson's face of shock, like, oh, I thought you were going to be against this, because let's face it, any kind of invasion tactic, because we saw the horrible example of the 20-year waste in Afghanistan, is a fool's idea. And also relying on drones as another method, too, on combating. You know, I don't know if anyone's been aware of this, especially Tulsi Gabbard. She should know about this. She should know about this, and that is that there have been numerous incidents where, again, a lot of these drone pilots targeted the wrong locations. They shot at civilians, innocent men and women and children. And the thing is, when we bomb people, we get people angry at us. They bomb us. We get angry. We bomb them right back. It's a continuous cycle of hate. And that drone strike killed civilians. They weren't terrorists. They weren't part of any kind of cabal or evil organization. They were innocent civilians. A U.S. drone did that. And of course, the military-industrial complex will defend its actions. And again, Tulsi Gabbard trying to sugarcoat this. I understand her mindset. She does serve in the Hawaiian National Guard. I understand her mindset, but she's wrong about this. Every time we get involved in any country overseas, especially when we try to enforce our policy or, again, bring our war on terrorism to any other country, we cause more trouble. We cause more problems. And Tulsi Gabbard is wrong on this. Look, I really liked her campaign in the 2020 election cycle. I really felt that she was being smeared. But when it comes down to this policy, now again, she's a private citizen. She's not a congresswoman. She's not in office right now. But she should know better, because she was the one who was talking about ending regime change wars, ending the military-industrial complex. But her actions, again, and her statements right here on Tucker Carlson's show are extremely questionable. These policies have been continued on by Democratic and Republican presidential administrations. And she has talked about how she learned firsthand why these regime change wars were bad when she was serving in Iraq. There's no defense for continuous drone strikes. There's no defense for it at all. And we've seen videos and stories and heard many statements from many whistleblowers who were drone pilots, who talked about, again, the abuse of power and crimes that were committed. I don't know what Tulsi Gabbard's on, but she needs to get her mind out of 2002, 2003. It's 2021. And with the aftermath of our evacuation from Afghanistan, it's clear that nothing in regards to military foreign policy, especially from the United States, will solve anything. Not in Iraq, not in Afghanistan, not in Libya, not in Syria, not in Yemen, not anywhere. But hold on, it gets a little worse. It gets a little worse. So let's pull this tweet up from Tulsi Gabbard. Again, mind you, I want to remind everyone that she did endorse Biden, but I don't know what she's talking about in this tweet right here, especially with what we're seeing with the nightmare south of the border. I was hoping that Biden would keep his promise to try and unite our country, but instead this administration has used race and identity politics to divide us. Our freedom of speech and civil liberties are under assault. Inflation is going through the roof, and now we've got open borders. Again, I just want to remind Tulsi Gabbard that all this has been continued on by Democratic and Republican presidential administrations. Biden is just playing the same song. It's not Biden. This has been ongoing from Reagan all the way up to Biden. From Reagan, Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, Bush Jr., Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Biden. And mind you, this humanitarian crisis that's south of the border, be they refugees from Haiti, from Central America, or South America, it's because of the uncontrollable threat of climate change. It's because of regime change wars that are happening in the Western Hemisphere. It's because of ridiculous war on drugs. It's because of coups. It's because of the U.S. interfering in other countries, especially in South America, Central America. And people are fleeing these areas because, again, they're becoming hostile. And they come to this country and they get treated like animals. So Tulsi Gabbard needs to get it clear that, number one, the Biden administration is continuing on the same policies. We even covered this on the show before, where the Biden administration is continuing on Donald Trump's policies. So let's play this first video. We're just going to play the first 3 minutes. We'll pause it, and we'll play the rest of it. Let's go ahead and play this video.
Let's bring in former Hawaii Democratic Congresswoman, former presidential candidate, and Army reservist, Tulsi Gabbard. She's just back from deployment in Africa to go after al-Qaeda-affiliated jihadists there. Congresswoman, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Brett.
I want to talk about Afghanistan, foreign policy, and counterterrorism, but I want to start on the issue of immigration that's pressing now in the news. You tweeted out this today. You said the Biden-Harris open door policy has been a disaster. It needs to end now. The main beneficiaries of open borders are the gangs, cartels, and human traffickers. The Trump policy of having people wait on the other side of the border worked and needs to be reinstated. Your thoughts about what's happening in Del Rio and how the administration is handling it?
It is an utter disaster and failure, and it's directly attributed to the Biden-Harris administration's open border policy. This is not only a humanitarian crisis, it is a national security crisis, and it's something I've said all along, which is that if we do not secure our borders, then we can't have a secure nation. There are so many issues that have happened under this administration that have led to this point, and their continued failure of leadership is exacerbating the crisis that we're seeing play out before our very eyes.
But do you think, having been in Congress, that Congress can deal with this issue?
Congress has proven, unfortunately, to put partisan politics ahead of actually passing real necessary immigration policy reform. But what we've seen under the last several months under this administration, unfortunately, and Joe Biden is a friend, I hold no malice towards him, but I have to say that the policies and decisions that have been made via executive order by the White House have led to this open border policy with thousands, tens of thousands of people coming and attempting to and sometimes successfully streaming across the border.
And you think that's a national security threat as well?
It absolutely is. How can you say that it's not when we have no idea who is coming across the border? And once again, how can we ensure safety and security for the American people when we don't have a secure border?
All right, the counterterrorism fight, the president
let's
talking
pause
about.
Right there. Pause right there for 1 second. Look, the United States is still, again, the Biden-Harris administration are continuing on Donald Trump's policies south of the border. Again, those cages, all those facilities were started under the Obama-Biden administration as well. So the very fact that Tulsi Gabbard is saying this, she's just using a talking point, I guess maybe to sound smart or to make herself stand out. But let's be very clear. We've seen the videos, we've seen the photos of the Haitian people of those Haitian refugees being whipped, round up by, again, law enforcement riding horses, where we saw drone footage of a lot of those Haitian refugees underneath the bridges. There is a real humanitarian crisis. And it's just not like everyone just woke up one day and decided to come to the United States. It's because of climate change and U.S. policy, especially in regards to regime change wars and coups, that's causing people to migrate to the United States. This ridiculous war on drugs that's causing these cartels to terrorize communities in Central and South America. So people are escaping with their families to look for a better life. And so what is their reward when they make this arduous, dangerous march towards the United States? They get rounded up, treated like cattle, get deported, or far, far worse. Now, Tulsi should know better on this. She served in Congress. She ran what I felt was a very interesting campaign, but apparently she seems to have forgotten her message, or she's making a feel in the water about maybe running again for politics. But let's be clear here. Those refugees, be they from Haiti or Central America or South America, are human beings. And they were put in an unfortunate situation because of the United States policies and also the ever-growing threat of climate change. Let's play the rest of this video.
How it's evolving, how it's going to change. Take a listen.
We'll meet terrorist threats that arise today and in the future with a full range of tools available to us. We're better equipped to detect and prevent terrorist threats, and we are more resilient in our ability to repel them and to respond.
There are a lot of people, Congresswoman, who say what happened in Afghanistan and what is happening now and how we handled it has really opened the door for more terrorists. You've just come back from Africa, which is also a hotbed of radical jihadists.
Can we pause right there for real quick? Just a simple, short question. What the hell are we doing in Africa? What are the United States Special Forces or any kind of military outfit doing in Africa right now? Now, again, saying that's a hotbed for terrorism, no matter where we go, we seem to be causing more trouble than good. We seem to be causing more pain and suffering. Now, I understand Tulsi Gabbard recently came back from a deployment over there on the continent of Africa, where specifically, again, it's anyone's guess, but let's be very clear here. We have no business anywhere right now. We shouldn't be wasting countless treasury on regime change wars or any kind of military expeditions. We saw 20 years of waste in Afghanistan, $2 trillion. And to quote my colleague Daniel, look, there's still an interest. So it's probably maybe $6 trillion or $8 trillion. Why don't we start taking care of ourselves? I remember Tulsi Gabbard talking about this and saying that there's going to be a hotbed of more terrorists and that we're creating an open door for terrorism. The U.S. war on terrorism created more problems. We created more terrorists. Our actions, our invasions, from Afghanistan to the ridiculous war in Iraq with weapons of mass destruction. Mind you, you would think that would be a pretty big deal. Where's the WMDs? Oh, that's right. It was one big lie. So again, this talking point about how we got to secure the border. We made this problem. The American government, let's be very clear, our elected officials made this problem because remember, they're bought and owned by big fossil fuel industries that profit off of taking oil from other countries and also, again, the military-industrial complex as well. Let's play the rest of this video.
Well, as you know, Brett, in both East and West Africa, there is a surge of these jihadist terrorists. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and affiliated groups are increasing in their strength. The withdrawal from Afghanistan is something that I agreed with, but unfortunately, the way that this administration executed that withdrawal has been an utter and abject disaster, which is continuing to play out as we speak. For those who say, and we should continue to monitor Afghanistan to make sure that there are no Al-Qaeda and ISIS strongholds that are allowed to start to take root. If we're seeing that that's starting to happen, then we need to go and take them out. But we should not be under the illusion that...
Pause it there. Take them out. What have we... There's nothing more we could do in Afghanistan. It's over. The Taliban's there. They're there to stay. There's nothing else we can do to fix the problem in Afghanistan. It's over. No empire, no nation has ever been able to successfully occupy Afghanistan. We should have learned from the Soviets. If they failed miserably, of course we did too, but we spent 20 years there and $2 trillion plus interest. So there's going to be terrorist cells. Again, it's because of our foreign policy and what we're doing at the behest of the military-industrial complex and the big fossil fuel industries as well. So again, there's nothing else we can do. We've bombed everything. We've caused enough terror. See, the U.S. policy is we bomb, and we steal people's resources. Whereas other countries, look, China, they're just trying to build infrastructure. And who knows what's going to happen in the future. But in regards towards global superpowers, the United States can only play this game for so long of bombing other countries. Our actions will come back to haunt us. There's nothing else we can do in Afghanistan. It's over. Let's play the rest of the video.
This is a problem that's only limited to Afghanistan, and the proof of that is that Al-Qaeda, for a very long time, has been able to get refuge and actually have training camps and support in Pakistan, which is a problem that not only hasn't been addressed, but we've seen the United States continue to support Pakistan in spite of this known fact and reality. So this is a bigger issue here that really needs to be addressed.
Are you still a Democrat?
Yes.
And will continue to be, despite the criticism on a number of fronts?
Well, look, I've never been about party politics, Brett. I think you know that about me. I'm about putting country first. And the problems that we're seeing on a whole host of policy fronts is those in positions of power and leadership putting partisan politics, their own selfish desire for power.
Pause it. Look, born and raised on the south side of Chicago, I know this. If a group or somebody doesn't like me, I avoid them, and I'm not going to take that disrespect. I think we all can live like that, right? If some people don't like us or some people want to cause trouble with us, just forget it, right? And here's what I mean by this. The Democratic Party constantly smeared and turned Tulsi Gabbard into pariah. What loyalty do you have to the Democratic Party? They didn't give you anything in return. They constantly smeared you, they disrespected you, just like they did to Bernie Sanders, just like they did with the squad. So the very fact that Tulsi Gabbard is saying, oh, I'm a Democrat, I'm still a Democrat. All I'm thinking is, my goodness, they kicked you in the mouth, they kicked you in the stomach, they throw you down to the ground, and yet you're going to still say you're part of their club. If they don't like you, what's in it for you to get back in their good graces? If they didn't like you then, if you stood out against them, what's the incentive, Tulsi? Seriously. Look, I've made it clear here, at least from my perspective, my point of view, that I'm not going to vote Republican, and I sure as hell am not going to vote Democrat during the midterm election cycle. There's nothing in it for me to support those two parties. So when people ask me, am I a Democrat, I'm going to say no. And if they're going to say I'm a Republican, no. I'm going to vote third parties. I'm going to support a third-party candidate, somebody who's independent, someone who's not connected to the Democratic and Republican establishment. So the very fact that I hear these words coming from Tulsi, yes, I'm still a Democrat, I just can't help but think they disrespected you, and yet you still kiss their ring. They smeared you, and you still say praises to them. You owe them nothing. But if you need me to tell you that, then I guess you're in real trouble. Let's play the rest of the video.
Power ahead of the interests of the country, ahead of the interests of the people. And that's what I always try to do my very best in looking at different policies, is we have to put the people and the interests of our country first.
Well, I want to ask you about this. You know, we're just getting the tip of the iceberg about this John Durham investigation, and there's been an indictment of a Hillary Clinton attorney, Mr. Sussman, about basically infusing this Russia narrative with the help of various media outlets and others. And it may go other places. We don't know. We're following it. But you have a unique perspective in that Hillary Clinton once called you a Russian asset. Just to remind people, take a listen.
They're also going to do third party again. And I'm not making any predictions, but I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third party candidate. She's a favorite of the Russians. Yeah, she's a Russian asset. I mean, totally. And so they know they can't win without a third party candidate.
They went on to confirm that that was you that she was referring to.
Can we pause it here?
Your thoughts?
Wait, let's pause it here, because I want to just defend Tulsi right here at this point. That was Hillary Clinton smearing, a Democrat Hillary Clinton, and there's numerous other Democrats that were smearing Tulsi Gabbard, calling her a Russian asset, calling her a Republican plan, calling her a third-party candidate, that somehow she's going to run third party during the 2020 presidential election cycle. None of that happened, and there were no ties connecting Tulsi Gabbard to Russia, the Republican Party, or even trying to start a third party. So that was one big smear. So I just want to make that very clear. That's probably the only caveat. Again, that's what a lot of our stories were for Hard Lens Media in regards to talking to Tulsi Gabbard and how she was getting smeared by the Democratic establishment and corporate media. Let's play the rest of this real quick.
It says we're starting to get this Durham investigation and what that means.
Confirms what I've known to be true, which is that you have the power elite, people like Hillary Clinton, those around her, working with the media, the deep state, in order to bring down the destruction and downfall of anyone that they deem to be a threat to their power. Outsiders, people like me, people like Donald Trump, doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican, if they identify, hey, this is someone who's not going to toe the line, this is someone who's not going to...
I think we're going to end this video here, but I just want to say right now, Donald Trump as an outsider. That man was never an outsider. He was always in the club. He was a parasite. He never implemented any policy. He survived off of Democratic and Republican presidential administrations' policies, as well as policies that were passed by the United States Senate and House. See, Donald Trump, he just took advantage of a system that was already corrupt. But he knew all the politicians. He was a Democrat before he became a Republican, and when he became a Republican, of course, he became friends with all the GOP donors and everything else like of that sort. He was never an outsider. He was part of the club. Donald Trump implemented neoliberal and neoconservative policies under his 4 years as president. So calling him an outsider, Tulsi, I mean, okay, that's a bridge too far for me. Now, I understand you were running as an outsider, but right now we're seeing this flip-flap and you making these questionable statements. Again, I think a final note for the story is you could respect somebody who's running for office or somebody that has a position of power or somebody that you respect who are saying things that you can agree with. But at the same time, too, you got to hold them to account for their actions and words. And what Tulsi Gabbard is saying is clearly wrong here. Trump and the establishment, they're not outsiders. There's no one that's in the establishment that's an outsider. And people who we elected, who we thought were outsiders, quickly then bent over backwards to be part of the same system. We saw it from AOC, we see it from Bernie Sanders, we see it from every kind of lawmaker out there at the state or federal level. So, again, who knows what Tulsi Gabbard is going to tweet out, but I think it's very important to note out that she's a private citizen. She's not in Congress. If people are triggered by Tulsi Gabbard or any of her policies, remember, our current elected officials can kind of remove her bills or any of her state or any of her policies that she did implement when she was in Congress. But she needs to be very clear on what she's saying. And shout out again to the Convo Couch, where they did reach out to Tulsi Gabbard to ask her to clarify some of her statements. They haven't heard anything back yet. I'm pretty sure if they do, they'll be sure to post a tweet out. So they've been doing fantastic work. Don't hero worship your politicians, folks. You're always going to be disappointed. And if we can we pull up that tweet from Jimmy Dore one last time, Faze? I think it's just important just to really just read this out. Same, all heartbreakers for me. And again, retweeting out from Ron Placone. You know, we could scroll down to Ron Placone's tweet there real quick. I was wrong about Tulsi Gabbard. I was wrong about Bernie and the squad, AOC. I was wrong to think our electoral system could somehow be the solution. I know it will never be #general strike. And that's what I'm for at this point in time. We need to do a general strike.